On to our next speaker, Amos Barkai, who is the CEO and co-founder of a fisheries management company, OLSPS.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to demonstrate to you, and I want to say that the session last morning was the best introduction to what I'm going to talk about today, because we were introduced to a lot of science, a lot of knowledge, but there was always the question in the back, what you do with all this knowledge, what you do with all this science, how you translate science and know-how into actual management. So I would like to demonstrate or to show you a system that we developed over the last 10 years that potentially can change the face of fishery management. Sorry if it sounds a little bit arrogant. And I think it's also will demonstrate that present technology, data science and new technology is not only something that can improve the way we're managing fish resources, it actually can change the game completely if to be adapted properly. The initiator of the RTI, which stands for Real-Time Incentive, is Dr. Sarah Krack, that passed away 2 years ago from COVID. She was a dear friend and very bright scientist, and it's very unfortunate that we need to carry on this process without her. She's greatly missed. Myself and Professor David Red joined Sarah about 10 years ago. And then since then, we developed the concept. We ran a lot of behind-the-scene work, simulation, theoretical modeling. But my focus will be on the actual deployment and explanation of the system and the actual deployment. My company is based in Cape Town, and the last few years also in offices in Portugal. And we specialize in the combination, we're merging fishery science, deep knowledge of software development and data science together into one discipline. And I think that's the reason why I joined this particular project, because I felt that this RTI can put all these three elements together. So what is the problem? The problem that we have is that over the last 2015, okay, since I joined fishery management, is more than 30 years ago, there is a continuous demand for more and more information, more data, and to fishery management to be more inclusive. When I started to do stock assessment modeling work, it was a single species, fish live in a vacuum. You wanted to know what is the surplus production of fish as if they live in some free space, and then hopefully not to fish too much so the fish will stay sustainable and in a productive level. However, sorry, the slide just moved by himself. However, over the years, we start to realize that fish interacting with other species, which also affecting their own population dynamic, but also with the environment. They are living in habitats that have been affected by the fishing operation. And of course, other species that they caught together with the target species also damaged by fishing operation. And in addition, just not to make it not complicated enough, fishing operation itself is a very complicated process, involve very high dynamic, high energy occupation. And in addition, there is a lot of political interference. There is a social consideration, economic consideration, cultural consideration, you name it, is in fishery. And I have a whole presentation, which I'm not going to give today, saying that fishery management is actually more complicated than sending people to the moon. So what we do with all this complexity, what normal bureaucrats do, it translates the complexity and the demand for more control and more information and more data to regulation, to the level that to become a fisher, you need a PhD now in data science in order to understand what you need to do, how to follow the regulation. So the end result is really that it's not really enforceable anymore. It's not really, fishermen cannot compile cannot comply with the regulation. It doesn't really understand them. We developing part of our we developing electronic logbook. Sometimes we have to have hundreds of rules in this logbook in order to comply with the requirement. And it's just simply become too complicated for the management authorities and for the fisher themselves to follow the sea tsunami of regulation that coming their way in order to follow different demand and different requests for more information and more control. So as I said, what we like to do is really to take this all complexity and to pack it into something very, very simple using technology. Nothing is simple behind. The technology is complicated, and the science that generate the input to this technology is complicated, but the actual use of the technology, the actual mechanism is extremely simple. And the example that I would like to give is simple thing that we're using every day, like traffic lights. We're taking a very complicated problem, how to move cars that moving in a great speed in busy area with a lot of pedestrian, a lot of consideration, different weather, and to translate it to very, very simple mechanism. You have red to stop, you have green to go, and some orange in between, and that's all you need to know, and your chances to stay alive are fairly great if you just follow this simple rule. So we try to think in a similar way. Can we take all this complex science, all this knowledge, not to dismiss it, but to bring it into the user in a way that is much more accessible and practical? So what is RTI? RTI is really taking the responsibility of where to fish and how much to fish to two simple rules. This is where you are fishing and how long we staying and where you are fishing. And where you are fishing is the allocation of risk in a special way to different tangle in the sea. And we're saying there are areas that are more risky for a variety of reasons. And the scientists, the social scientists, biologists, ecologists can sit together and to decide and to quantify this risk. But in the end of the day, there are a lot of consideration which can be translated to high risk, very high risk, which represent by the, how do I go back? Which represent by the black closed fishing area, which is really MPA, basically, a closed area, over by an area for very low risk. How many I have? I just started. I will try to do it faster, but I cannot do it. I'm sorry, I didn't see the watch. And very low risk. So let me take you, so we have a special distribution of risk, and we have some kind of vessel tracking, the tracking how long the vessel spent in each risk area. That's the only two things that we need to know. So the vessel vessel going to the sea, you get a budget, like you give to your kids when you take them to the mall. You give them 50 pounds if you are generous, and you're telling them you're going to spend this as you wish, but the moment you finish it, you go out. So the fishermen get budget. We call it points or credit, tariff point. And then we get a spending map. And this whole system sitting on technologies is e-log technology that used in many, many fisheries around the world, in Europe on about 20,000 vessels, and which allow you to track the vessel, to know where they are fishing, and to exchange information between the vessel and the shore on a regular basis, often in real time. So this is the platform that we develop. On the vessel, we have the right-hand side, we have the map. The map is a density map where different colors represent different level of risk, and the movement end on the left-hand side, we have the shore where all the clever people sitting and making their decision. And you can see on the map that you have, for example, two different maps. If you are working in if you are sitting in an area which is a very strong color, in this case it's orange, then your number of points that you're spending wherever you are is increased. The speed in which you're spending your credit is increased. And if you're going to area which is yellow, for example, lower risk, your credit is spent less. So all you need to do is to decide how much point of usage you prepare to spend or credit you prepare to spend based on the area where you are. This map is loaded automatically from the shore system to the e-log system, so it's available to the user all the time. So for example, a map can be represent the risk of the area, the perceived risk of particular area, but also what fishing gear you use. Are you using mitigation device? Do you have what gear you're using? How selective is your gear? So if you're using suddenly a more selective gear, then the map will change automatically to represent a better distribution of, I almost finished, I'm so sorry. And the same thing, if you get information, for example, that certain protected species suddenly occur in certain area, like leatherback turtle, then you can send immediately another map, and certain area that were open before will now be closed, and you can react in real time, in real life, to change in information and change in reality on the ground. So this is roughly the presentation. I will give you the benefit is which consider, we have a system consider multiple biological and ecological factors. Catch and landing quotas are not required, very important, think about it. Fisher are given a significant operational decision space. Fisher forced to fish responsibly. RTI system can be greatly automated, and tariff maps and dynamically updated to address changing circumstances and data in real time. Simulation suggest far better result in management of bycatch. This is my presentation. I'm sorry about taking too much time, really sorry.